Okay, hello everyone. This is Chala, Dincoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert. I'm here with another edition of my podcast, Naked Marketing, where we talk about our naked, honest mistakes in marketing. My latest guest is Scott Greenberg. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. So glad to be with you today.
Yes, and you don't have anything annoying behind you like I do. No logos, no pictures, no pictures of, like condos. What's going on behind you?
I try to keep it clean. I do a lot of conversations like this, but I also do a lot of virtual presentations. And sometimes I'm standing up. So I just decide to keep it clean without distractions and let people wonder what's happening outside of the frame. So I keep it mysterious.
I love the standing up one. I see a lot of my guests are standing up. I think that's so great. And then there's ones that are sitting on balls. That's less interesting, but yeah.
Well, maybe they have a bad back or something. So
Yeah, true, very true. So Scott, tell us what you do and who you help.
So I help franchise brands close the franchisee performance gap, and I help franchise business owners grow their businesses. So a typical day at work would be a franchise system brings me in to keynote and or teach workshops at their annual franchise convention. So I'll talk to their franchisees about what they can do to grow their businesses. So I do that. Brands bring me to consult. I also write about the franchise industry. I have a book in a few different places, right? I have articles. And then I work one-on-one with franchisees through coaching and through my online course.
Is it any kind of franchise? Anything from like, food to, hardware?
I have yet to have an NFL franchise as a client yet, but pretty much everything else, whether it is quick service restaurants, whether it is pest control, senior in-home care. I have worked with franchises that specialize in fluid transfer systems. Yes, I was scratching my head too. Ones that focus on selling batteries and light bulbs. So there are definitely those, but a lot of them are, of course, are food and the more common things that you'd think of.
It's crazy, isn't it? You can get a franchise in anything.
And it's amazing how surprising it is how many brands you wouldn't even think of or franchises are, and it might be, I've been brought in by, real estate companies only to find out that those real estate offices are all franchised. Medical offices, there's a lot of, urgent care facilities that are franchises, and the franchisee is not a doctor. They just hire doctors to work for them.
That's amazing. Now, how did you get into this? Did you used to work at one?
I used to own a franchise. So the way I got into it was I was already doing motivational speaking and leadership training for a number of years. And I realized a lot of people in my audiences had a lot more actual business experience and leadership experience than I did. And that didn't sit well with me. I didn't want to be one of those speakers who pretty much just quotes other speakers or, reads some book and then just regurgitates it. I wanted some more experience to really prove that what I was saying was true and to have some more credibility. And when that idea occurred to me, I saw an airline magazine ad for a company called Edible Arrangements. I'd
Oh,
never,
yeah.
now it's a household name, but back then it wasn't. But I saw a picture of this big floral arrangement made of fruit. And I thought, that's cool. And I live here in LA. There's a lot of gift giving out here. And so I went to a discovery day. Before I knew it, I was signing lots of things and opened up my first of what would be 2 locations. And so obviously I wanted to make money doing it. But more importantly, I really wanted to learn what it takes to grow a business and lead employees and get great customer service reviews, not just so I can make money, but so I can then teach those concepts to my audiences. So for me, the learning was as important as the earning. And that proved to really, really be successful over time. It was difficult in the beginning, but we ended up making our location the top one in the state. And then we took a struggling location and we turned it around using the same concepts. And then I started getting invitations to speak at franchise conferences. And so now that's the main thing that I do. Probably 20% of my audience is everything else, but 80% of the groups I work with are franchise businesses.
So you still have your franchise?
No, so I had them for 10 years and sold them about 5.5 years so I could focus on this exclusively.
God, don't you feel naked? Talk about naked marketing, but without having a franchise, I mean, don't you always want to be in the business?
You know, no. There were things about it that were great, and I would consider getting into it again. I'm really glad that I did it, but it got to a point where I was looking at the increases in minimum wage and some changes that our franchisor was making, and I just thought, the timing of it seems like a good time for me to get out. The business was doing really well, and I was concerned about what might be happening around the corner, and I was getting just a lot of invitations to speak and do these other things, and my passion really is in this. So I got what I needed from it and ended on a high note, have a very good relationship with that brand still. So for me, it was good. Someday I might go back in some capacity, but right now things are kind of clicking.
So you're like a fascinating case study for me because I'm a niching coach. So before, when you were a generic, like a speaker, versus after now, where you have a complete niche into and an expertise in uh, franchises, what was it like? The two differences of still being a speaker and a mentor and a trainer, but one is generic and the other one is niched.
Terrifying. As to become niche, it means you need to be willing to focus your marketing,
Mm-hmm.
focus your branding, and say no.
Mm-hmm.
It means on your website, you say, this is who I work with, which is also saying, this is who I don't work with. And the truth is, like my book, I've had a lot of people not from the franchise world read it. Probably 80% of the content is great for any business. But I specifically called it the wealthy franchisee focusing the franchise world because as you know, that if you can really focus on a niche that is, deep enough where there's opportunities, it's probably a better way to go. So I'm sure I've lost a lot of opportunities, but the payoff of that focus has been making it a lot easier for me to do very well in the lane that I've chosen.
Exactly. And it's the lane that you choose is the critical part. Because if somebody isn't like you and they decide to go into a franchise, like it was natural for you, you kind of like fell into it. But was what I keep saying, and the guest before you today, I actually had another guest, and she came from the nonprofit world, and I had a property management company. So now she has a property management company with heart. So it's like, it's wonderful when you fall into the niches, but the real magic is how do you figure out that gap in the market to have to create it on your own. And that's what I do. But so I love that you're a huge proponent of niching because you're the proof that it works. You're the proof that it works. Okay. So tell us, I mean, it sounds like you've done a lot of marketing, both for yourself as a speaker and for franchises, and you probably teach them how to do this. What is the biggest mistake that you've made in your life in marketing?
I'll tell you the biggest mistake that I have personally made, and then maybe the biggest mistake that I see being made by others. The biggest mistake that I made was gave into my impatience and my fear when it came to marketing. That I expected immediate ROI. And part of that was not really understanding how to measure marketing efforts. I measured it by the number of ads and how much money I was spending. In fact, when I bought the franchise, part of my contract, my franchise agreement was that I would spend $10,000 on a grand opening marketing campaign. But they didn't they gave some guidance as to what that could look like, but the only requirement was spending $10,000. So if I wanted to spend it on one billboard along a highway for a few days, $10,000, that would be okay with them. And that really wasn't smart. And what I've come to realize is what you really should be after, and again, you would know this better than I, it's really about impressions, not about how much money you spend, how long an ad runs, but how many impressions do you get for your effort? And I wasn't thinking these terms. I was just spending money and running ads. And if I wasn't getting an immediate return, if I couldn't in a week or two, really track and make back the money that I invested, well, then I assumed that it was a bust. And so I stopped marketing. And during, when things got tough, marketing in the short term, it was an easy thing to cut off. I could save some money, which is like a farmer saying, I'm going to save some money by not planting seeds. So it's going to get you through the short term, but it's going to come out as a cost. And so if I would advise others, if I could, go back in time and do it again, I would have been a lot more deliberate about going after impressions rather than just spending money. And I would have been a lot more patient, understanding that the payback from the seeds that you plant, it happens over time, but it's worth it. No one's ever grown their business by not marketing.
Do you advise your clients on, you have like, do you just do speaking or do you have consulting clients?
I have a bit of consulting, especially one-on-one with franchisees and franchisors. There's been times where I've been brought in to help them recreate management programs, that kind of thing. I don't advise on marketing itself. I leave that to experts like you. What interests me is really the human elements of running a business. And for every part of running a business, there's the surface, there's what's underneath. So for customer service, there's what the customer gets, and there's how the customer feels. So I'm interested in talking about that. So marketing isn't just about advertising and using all the strategies that you're a master at. It also requires patience and faith and understanding and kind of how to tell a story. Understanding the rhetorical triangle where you have, logos, which is, logic, ethos, which is credibility, but then pathos, which is emotion. Understanding that part of the marketing. I'm interested in those human elements. And so all the work that I do is focusing on mixing those things with everything operational.
That's great. Yeah, because my big question was, do you advise them differently if it's a B2B versus a B2C? And so, you've answered my question. You don't advise them around that marketing.
But a lot of the franchises that bring me in, their focal point is on the business customer. I had one printing franchise where every customer they have is another business. And so what I had to explain to them is not enough to just market to them and print to them. That relationship and understanding what it takes to build trust, to cultivate a relationship, to create a culture. There are human elements of that. And it's especially important in a B2B operation. Understanding what is the emotional need of that business client, because you can fulfill that need on top of, meeting your promises. That's what's going to create that loyalty. That means everything.
Yeah. I mean, for 18 years when I worked at, Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay, I bought advertising, but now I'm against it. And I'm not against it for them, but I'm against it for smaller companies like us. And especially in the B2B space, there are so many more sophisticated tools to use, especially with, social media, that I don't believe in advertising anymore. So
Yeah.
I don't want to offend anyone. I hope I don't get, shut down from Facebook, but
advertising is one form of marketing, but it's not the only form. But I will say this though, because again, we ran some pretty great, pretty profitable stores. And for us, the best form of marketing, and this will be the second mistake that I was referring to, the one that I see others make. For us, the emphasis was on providing great customer experiences that were so significant that our customers would do our marketing for us. I believe, and I say this in my book, and I want to make sure I get this right so that your listeners understand it, that marketing can actually hurt your business. And the reason why I say that is because if you spend all this money, invest all these resources into driving traffic to your business, and then when people get there, you disappoint them, you offend them, you don't deliver on your promise. Well, now all you're doing is you're telling the world that much faster that you suck at what you do.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think we really shouldn't be marketing our business until we're really ready to not only deliver on our promise, but to over deliver, to make sure that then our customers take the baton and then do our marketing for us. So for me, if I were to, people asking what's the biggest mistake in marketing, I would say it's not following up on the promise of what it is that you're marketing.
Exactly. And your job, I imagine, is greatly operational in figuring out, the customer satisfaction, and then, with the actual systems in place that actually help the thing run profitably. I can imagine those are all like big deals in delivering the results rather than trying to pull people in, because the whole idea of a franchise is that people know the name, right?
Yeah. Well, and also the goal isn't not to get customers, it's to get repeat customers.
Yeah.
So the marketing gets them in, but the experience they get is what brings them back and is what gets them talking. So that's the stuff that I find very interesting. And, a lot of people don't really consider that. They just want to push the traffic to their business, and there might be some short-term gains, but if you're doing a bad job, people are going to be talking about that, and the negative reviews are going to go up, and you're leaving money on the table.
So this is post-COVID world. What parting advice do you have around marketing for, businesses like yours?
To really understand what is the story that people want to have told to them. Like, don't assume that their mindset is where your mindset. So, during the pandemic, people have been very raw and very vulnerable. You want to connect with them there. So if they're in survival mode, talking to them about success is a little bit off the mark. So you want to help them survive. And, what is it that they want? So you really have to know what's on the minds of the consumers that you're after, and you want to meet them there. That's what makes them curious. That's what gets their attention. And the more you can assess their needs and then make the promise to meet those needs and, of course, deliver on it, the greater your chances of building your business.
That's great. Now, how do people reach you, Scott?
My website is scottgreenberg.com, B-E-R-G. And you can find me in all of the big social media places. My book, The Wealthy Franchisee, is available wherever books are sold. There's an audiobook, there's an ebook, and of course, the actual book is there. So scottgreenberg.com. And you can also search for The Wealthy Franchisee.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.